Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is part 2 of What If Kaguya Become Naruto's Shadow. If you guys enjoyed this what if, then comment, like and subscribe. Let's go. Also the video goal is 10 likes, so let me know that you're interested in the series and you want the next part. Then go ahead and check out the other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave. Also share the video with your friends and link in the description. So let's go. The rest of the day at the academy went by almost too fast for Naruto. He had no idea being in school could be so fulfilling. After kicking Inuzuka Kiba's ass, no one knew what to say to him. In fact, they all seemed terrified of him. That was good. He had given them the chance to be his friend. Yet they shunned and rejected him at every turn, inheriting their parents' hate without question. Those same parents that glared at him now, all of them waiting in the courtyard to pick their kids up for the day. In the past, those glares used to terrify him, to the point he would generally hide inside, waiting for most of the other kids to leave before finally skulking out for himself. Today he didn't mind, matching their glares with one of his own as he walked past. Naruto was no longer afraid of them. He had no reason to be afraid anymore, because he had power now. The liberating feeling of power was literally in the palms of his hands. For the first time in his life he was able to walk with his head held high, knowing there was nothing these people could do to hurt him anymore. Even the loneliness of seeing the other kids running into their parents' loving embrace wasn't enough to crush his spirits. That was because he wasn't alone either, no matter how much it looked like he might be. For in his shadow was the one person in the world that cared for him, that would look after him and make him stronger. The one that had shown him how to use this new invigorating power. We are glad to see thou are in a good mood. Kaguya, the very girl he had to thank for all this, said from within his shadow. At the moment it was impossible for her to come out. Not until night had fallen and their training began could he meet her face to face and properly speak with her. However, do not forget that we need thy cooperation. There is much that must yet be done. Yeah. Naruto spoke out loud, not caring who he let hear him. It wasn't like anyone was going to pay attention to him anyways. I just have to go to the library, right? Apparently Kaguya wanted more information on that Hitaki Kakashi guy that helped them out the night before. Naruto didn't see what the big deal was, so what if some guy finally helped him after all this time? Certainly he was an anomaly, but Kaguya seemed to be concerned about him for some reason. He couldn't exactly ignore a request from Kaguya, even if he didn't see the point in it. She couldn't walk around by herself, after all, and it wasn't like he didn't owe her for this sudden turn of fortune. So he set out to the library at her request, making his way through the fading twilight streets of Konoha. The public library wasn't far from the academy in the first place. Just a couple blocks away, but at this time very few people would be heading in this general direction. The path linking the academy to the library was especially abandoned, most of the leaving students and their parents taking the opposite path that would lead them to the residential areas of the village. Of course, this made the path he walked the perfect type of place for something like what happened last night to occur. That time, he had been unprepared, but he wasn't about to let someone strike him from the rear twice in as many consecutive days. Aruruji-sama, Kaguya warned, having sensed the danger approaching at the same time he did. I know already, Naruto said, body tensing as he prepared for combat. Hey, I know you said not to use the Rinnegan, but just a little is fine, right? There was no time to wait for any kind of response. Naruto had already committed himself to having to act. A fist flew at him from behind. Naruto leapt to the side, dodging out of the way at the last possible second. As he spun to face his aggressors, he once again found himself face to face with three of them. Unlike the last time, where they had been drunk young adults, it was now his classmates. Kids so otherwise insignificant he had never even learned their names. Yo, Naruto. The one that had thrown the first punch greeted him, standing up straight. You certainly seem to be in good spirits, huh? He slowly started to stalk to the left. Don't start thinking you're hot shit after one good day, you bastard. A fatter boy took up a position directly in front of him. To Naruto's rear was a brick fence. We don't know what kind of dirty tricks you used to beat Kiba, but even you aren't going to be able to take on three of us at once. The last boy hung back from the way they all came from, completing the entrapment and boxing off any possible escape for Naruto provided he kept to flat ground. Which was fine for him, he had no intention of going anywhere. "What's the matter, guys?" Naruto asked, a confident smirk smearing his face. He had yet to draw his hands from his pockets, but he was already channeling the chakra necessary to discharge an attack at any moment. "Ain't you got to go home with you mommies? At least we have moms, you orphan bastard." The same one who threw the first punch came running in again. At the same time the other two also started to charge, closing in on Naruto from three sides. In the past, such a fight would be impossible for him to win. As he was now, Naruto didn't see how he could lose. "Let's fucking go," he roared, pulling his right hand from his pocket. From beneath the glove, his Rinnegan eye opened, Naruto unleashing the Bansho Tenon on the boy that charged first. Not with enough force to move a whole boulder maybe, but instead just targeting the boy's face. To his opponent, it simply felt like some unknown force pushed on him from the back of the head. Whoa, he didn't have time to react, falling forward as if tripping and flying into Naruto's right hook. Needless to say, but the two forces colliding into him from opposite directions had devastating effects. He was already unconscious before the punch followed all the way through. Oi! The fat one in the middle stopped short at the suddenly unexpected and brutal one-hit knockout. That mistake cost him any kind of chance to counterattack, Naruto thrusting into his gut with an open left-handed palm strike. The moment Naruto's palm made contact he unleashed the Shinra Tensei. Despite the boy's weight making it impossible for a strike of any kind to send him flying, that was exactly what happened as he was knocked airborne to the brick fence on the opposite side of the road with enough force that the back of his head cracked open against the sudden collision. He dropped to his knees, eyes rolling up into the back of his head as he too lost consciousness. "You bastard!" The third of his assailant's voice cracked, but he committed to the attack, swinging at Naruto's face with a wild haymaker. Naruto turned his left hand on him too, once more unleashing the Shinra Tensei. Only nothing happened. He wasn't able to use his attack. He was going to get hit. At least, he should have been, but the last boy suddenly froze up. A quick glance down told him why. His shadow had shifted, Kaguya manipulating it to merge with his assailant's shadow and stop his movements. "There is a slight gap of time between charges of thy Rinnegan." Kaguya answered his unasked question, explaining why he hadn't been able to use Shinra Tensei just now. "We suspect about 5 seconds. Perhaps in the span of life, it is but a moment, but in a battle, 5 seconds is an eternity. Do not forget this." "Yeah," Naruto acknowledged, jumping in the air and delivering a spinning kick that connected to the side of the frozen boy's temple. Like the last two, he slumped down to the street in an unconscious heap. "Thanks for the save," he added as an afterthought. The fight had lasted less than those 5 seconds he would have needed to recharge the power in either eye, so he understood she wasn't just saying that. It was the harsh truth. Blood dripped down from the knuckles of his right hand. Not his blood, but the blood of the boy's face he punched in. The first two were bleeding profusely, enough so that he was afraid for a moment he overdid it. The fatty who flew into the wall looked especially gruesome, blood oozing from the back of his head and staining the street he lay on. "This might be bad for me, huh?" he asked. It hadn't been his intention to put that much power into the Shinra Tensei, but apparently he still didn't have much control over it yet. Yet Naruto didn't feel any guilt. He thought for sure he should. No, if this had been the day before he would have definitely been beside himself with panic, wondering what he was going to do if he got caught. The him right now, however, didn't feel much of anything. Elated that he won, perhaps. But certainly not remorseful for his actions. They had started it, just like those three last night, and they had paid for it far worse than these three had. Was that why he couldn't feel anything looking at them now? Was the shock from last night still that much stronger than even this? He personally didn't know. How was he supposed to sort his own feelings anymore? It felt like he was becoming a different person. "There is someone else here," Kaguya warned him yet again. Naruto's head jerked up, eyes quickly darting back and forth to find the last intruder. Unlike the last three, he hadn't even heard anyone else approaching. He still couldn't find them even now. "Behind the lamp post," Kaguya clarified, having used her Byakugan to scan the surrounding area for witnesses. "Hey, come out." Naruto turned to the nearest streetlight. A pole so slim he didn't think it was possible anyone could possibly be hiding behind it. Yet he was proven wrong as a petite girl stepped out from around the side of it, having realized she was exposed. Hinata? He asked in surprise, lowering the palm he had raised almost subconsciously, prepared to pull in whoever his last possible attacker might be. What he hadn't expected was the shy girl in his class, let alone the only other person he knew with the same eyes as Kaguya. Sorry. The girl whispered, her voice barely loud enough for him to hear with the distance between them. I didn't mean to spy on you, I saw them coming to attack you and she trailed off, eyes darting this way and that, unable to meet his gaze. As she talked, her hands had risen to the front of her chest and she pushed her index fingers together, the sign of some nervous tic. You came to back them up then. Naruto growled, blue eyes hardening as he stared her down. While it was true that Hinata was one of the rare few that never bullied him, it appeared to be because she was afraid of him this whole time. So maybe she had finally seen her chance to have him taken down. That was the only assumption he could make out of the given information. And no, that's not it. Yet Hinata quickly refuted him, shaking her head and waving both hands as if to fervently deny his claim with every part of her being. Even then, she still failed to give a reason. Taking a deep breath, she calmed herself ever so slightly and for perhaps the first time managed to meet Naruto's eyes. For now, please get out of here, Naruto-kun. I will go get the teacher to get these three help. And, I won't tell anyone I saw you here. I promise. Why? Naruto's shoulders went lax, not because he was dropping his guard, but because he was generally at a loss for what was happening at the moment. This weird, gloomy, shy girl that had never helped him before was suddenly offering to cover for him. It was no wonder he couldn't understand. For now, it is best thou do as she asks. Kaguya advised him gently. It is not a bad deal for us. If any of these three were to die with visible corpses it will only cause problems. In such an open area we cannot just turn them to ash like those of yesternight. Kaguya didn't need to say it, but the odds that any of them would say the truth of what happened was slim. Their pride would not allow it and they had reason to fear Naruto now. The only concern was if Hinata would be true to her word. At the moment, that was a risk they had to take. So Naruto relented with a nod. Well, whatever the reason is, thanks, Hinata. I owe you. He turned around to take off, but just before he did he couldn't help but catch the deep red blush on her face. No time to think about it for now, he left the scene behind him and took off running towards the library. As he jogged, he couldn't help but glance down at his shadow. An image of Kaguya came to his mind, in particular her Byakugan eyes. Is it possible she knows about you? Naruto couldn't dismiss the possibility. Like, maybe she's helping out because you both have the same eyes. Kaguya was silent for several moments and he almost wondered if she heard him. We do not think that is what happened. Kaguya finally answered, although she didn't offer him any kind of alternative reasoning either, leaving him to only imagine for himself. Even so, it seemed odd to him. Just ignoring Hinata, but there had been Kakashi that helped him the night before for unknown reasons as well. Both of them only coming to his rescue after Kaguya finally showed herself to him. For now, he wasn't going to get any answers on Hinata it would seem, but maybe Kaguya was right and they could find some answers why Kakashi helped them at the library. He had just arrived too, slowing his stride to a standard trot as he entered. It was his first time in Kanagaku's public library, but he hadn't expected it to be nearly this large. Multiple floors, each one teeming with shelves stuffed to the brim with scrolls. There was so much information here that he had no idea where to even start. Thou should ask the service desk. Kaguya advised, already having figured out why he stopped as soon as he stepped inside. Naruto grimaced at the idea, not looking forward to having to talk to anyone. None of the staff seemed to be aware of his presence yet, but he wasn't exactly hopeful for a warm welcome. Without any better options, he did as Kaguya suggested and began to approach the nearest counter. Excuse me? Naruto asked, voice suddenly timid in a way that reminded him of Hinata from just earlier. He hated that feeling as if all his confidence from before was stripped away. It would appear no matter how much he thought he was starting to change he was still unsure of himself in new situations. His new power wasn't going to help him here either, as he couldn't just attack the staff if they didn't give him what he wanted. What do you want? As expected, but Welcoming smile of the lady at the desk immediately slipped from her face as she soon realized who it was that had called out to her. Just great, Naruto had to fight the urge to sigh out loud at the expected response. There was nothing to it now though. Can you tell me where any scrolls with information about the copy ninja, Hitaki Kakashi might be? He asked, just hoping to get it over with as soon as possible. The lady instead clicked her teeth. How should I know? You see how big this place is. Go find it for yourself if you wanna know so badly. Now scram, I'm busy. As if to end the conversation there, she turned away from him and went back to sorting through a bin of scrolls she had been looking through earlier. Naruto felt his temper flare, and before he could even think about it he slammed both hands on the desk. The reverberating noise caused the lady to jump and drew the attention of every other occupant in the library. The hell do you mean you don't know? He growled. Isn't it your job to know where the scrolls are? I'm not asking you to get them for me, just point me to anything you have on Hitaki Kakashi and I'll go get it for myself. The woman sneered, and it looked like she was about to tell him to go shove it when suddenly from next to Naruto an handful of scrolls was dropped on the desk with enough force to make a sound comparable to when Naruto slammed down on it. I also want any scrolls you have on Hitaki Kakashi. Haruno Sakura said, standing up straight and folding her arms in front of herself. Her emerald green eyes had a fire in them that even made Naruto nervous. She had run off ahead of everyone else the moment class ended, leaving even ahead of him. He had assumed to race home, but apparently it had been with the intent of coming here instead. Aren't you the girl that just asked for everything we had on the Hokage a few minutes ago? The librarian asked, looking back and forth between the two as if to figure out what kind of relationship they might have. You already have quite a few scrolls as it is, you can't possibly need more. She then looked down at the impressive stack just dropped onto the desk. Huh? Sakura asked as if talking to an idiot. Don't you know we have final exams coming up next month? Naruto and I need at least this much if we're going to compete for the top score in the class. Now it was Naruto who had no idea what she was talking about. Sakura surely knew he always scored dead last, so why would she make up such an obvious lie? Even if it was a lie, it seemed to get results. I understand. The lady inclined her head, but only a little. I'll point you in the direction of the scrolls on Hitaki Kakashi. So it would seem she knew where they were after all. Not that this surprised Naruto, but it didn't piss him off any less. That wasn't enough for Sakura anymore, who shook her head. No, Naruto and I need to get studying right away. We'll be sitting right over there looking over what I already grabbed on the Hokage. Sakura pointed to a nearby desk before picking up half the armful of scrolls from earlier. Bring them to us once you have them. I want every scroll you have, I don't care if he's only mentioned once in it. The librarian's mouth flapped open and closed in disbelief at such an outrageous demand. You can't be serious, Naruto. Sakura was already ignoring her, turning to the blonde. Grab the rest of the scrolls and help me carry them over to the desk. We got to get started before it's too late. She didn't wait for an answer from either of them, already turning around and stalking away. Ah, wait for me. Naruto's mind barely had a chance to catch up with what had happened. All he could do now was go along with it, picking up the scrolls as she asked. And running after her. Behind him, he heard the librarian grumbling, but it would seem she was leaving to go get their scrolls as requested. Scary, Naruto mumbled under his breath. He had no idea Sakura could be so intimidating. What was that? Sakura shot him a dark look, having apparently heard what he said. He quickly shook his head as if to say he hadn't said anything. He began to walk to the opposite end of the desk, but Sakura pulled out the chair next to her. Where are you going? It will be more effective to study together if we're sitting next to each other, idiot. Oh, yeah. Of course. Naruto had no idea what was going on anymore. Sakura never talked to him. In fact, the few times he had tried to talk to her in the past she had been pretty violent in her rejections. They may have both been part of the unsociables, but that didn't make them friends. Even so, he had always felt a kind of companionship with her over everyone else. That was because she was almost just as badly bullied as he was. So long as you were only talking about within the confines of the classroom, of course. To all the adults, she was treated normally. Thanks, by the way. Naruto mumbled as he took his seat next to her. It seemed like he was starting to say that a lot lately. Sakura now being the third person to offer him help since Kaguya. Just what was going on with his weird string of good luck lately? He couldn't help but wonder. I don't need your gratitude. Sakura snapped back at him, having already unrolled one of the scrolls containing information about the Shodai Hokage on it. If you really wanna thank me, why don't you start by telling me your big secret? The sudden question caused Naruto to break out in a cold sweat. Ah, secret. He tried to play dumb, voice hoarse. He glanced down nervously at his shadow. If Kaguya thought there was a possibility she was going to be exposed, would she attack Sakura? Turn her to ash like those three the night before? He didn't want that. Sakura wasn't his friend, but she was someone he could at least somewhat sympathize with. Also, she just helped him out. Although apparently not for free. Sakura's emerald eyes shot in his direction and she slapped the scroll on the table once again. Don't play dumb with me. She snarled, pointing a finger into his chest with enough force to slightly push him back. You've been hiding your intelligence. And I want to know why. Was it funny for you this whole time, huh? Making a fool out of the rest of us. Naruto opened his mouth to ask her what she was talking about, but a sudden arm gripping his ankle shut him up. He glanced down just in time to see Kaguya's hand disappear back into his shadow. We would advise thou to go along with her misconception. Kaguya said now that she had his attention. Thou are no longer the dead last everyone assumed thou to be. For appearance's sake, it would be wise to keep up this ruse for as long as possible. He didn't know how she wanted him to do that. Fighting was one thing because he actually had some power now, and if worse came to worse then Kaguya could control his shadow and at least offer him backup. However, he couldn't fake smarts. Sure, he had gotten away with it in class earlier because Kaguya had literally been feeding him the information as he said it and he had something to prove. But there was no way he could keep something like that up for an extended period of time, especially in front of someone genuinely good at studying like Sakura. For now he had no choice but to at least try. Sakura was expecting some kind of answer. He didn't have to say anything smart, he just had to say something that sounded cool, right? A lie would be enough, because no matter what he said it would be more believable to her than the actual truth anyways. Or maybe, it wasn't funny for me. Naruto answered, having intended to wing it as he went. You think I liked being picked on as the dead last this whole time? I hated it, every single moment of it. Every joke, every time someone called me an idiot was so unbearable I wanted to scream. He had meant to tell a lie, but somehow instead he started telling her the truth. His truth. Some of it, at least. Then why? Sakura's gaze softened and even her voice lost the hard edge it used to have. It wasn't so much pity she looked at him with, but there was a hint of understanding. Of course, she knew what it was like to be bullied for being the smartest girl in class. If she had to choose between being bullied for being smart or being stupid, she would pick smart every time. At least that was something to be proud of. Do I really have to tell you why I might not want someone to see the real me? Those next words hit Sakura the hardest. Because she knew exactly what that was like. She too had opened herself up once. It was when she tried to show others her heart, that the true bullying began. She put it all on the line for some boy, telling him how she felt. And he acted like he hadn't even heard her. No, it wasn't an act, he truly hadn't so much as even seen her. Sakura destroyed her friendships for him and he didn't even acknowledge her existence. I'm sorry. Sakura turned back to her scroll, picking it up as if to start going over its contents. She knew how fake the attempt looked and there was no way she could concentrate on the studying after hearing him say all that. For what? Naruto asked, his voice bitter. For perhaps the first time Sakura had ever heard, he sounded truly regretful about the past and the way things turned out. He may have been one of the unsociables like her, but she always had the impression he had been trying his best until now despite everything. There was certainly no shame in that, even if things didn't go the way he had wanted. I guess, I just misunderstood you this whole time. Actually, that's not true. Sakura felt herself laugh. It wasn't out of humor, but more out of self-spite. I never tried to understand you. I was afraid if I did, you would turn out to be just like Sasuke-kun. That was right, the boy she once had a crush on was the same one every other girl in the class liked. That was why she had been bullied. Because some normal girl without even a clan thought she could stand in the same ring as everyone else. Naruto snorted. What's so great about that jerk anyways? So what if he's a little strong? I could still beat him up. After the fight against Kiba today, Sakura actually wasn't all that sure he was bluffing. Before, she might have thought it was impossible. All the other girls definitely still did. Yet now, I hope you do, she said, and found herself surprised to feel that she meant it. Naruto blinked in shock. He hadn't expected the conversation with Sakura to go so well. She was, actually being nice to him too. She didn't even laugh at him when he said he wanted to fight and beat Sasuke just now. He had assumed she liked him just like all the other girls, even if she was quiet about it. Now he wasn't so sure anymore. However, before their conversation could go any further, a stack of scrolls was dropped unceremoniously in front of them. Everything on Hitaki Kakashi. The librarian from earlier deadpanned, her voice clipped and short. Anything else I can help you with? She asked, but they both knew it was a mere nicety at this point. That's all, Sakura responded, but it was almost like she hadn't even actually heard. Her nose was still buried in the scroll she had been looking at from earlier, but it wasn't just for appearances anymore, now genuinely studying the text inside in order to memorize the information. The librarian made a huff, but took the opportunity to go back to her other duties before Sakura could change her mind and ask for more. The whole time, and she didn't even glance at Naruto. Not that he cared. He was tired of adults that didn't acknowledge him. Unlike with students who disrespected him, he couldn't beat them up, yet. He had a feeling he was getting dangerously close to slipping over the edge, however. Burying the dangerous impulse for the time being, he started digging through the new pile of scrolls in front of him. I don't even know where to start with all this, he complained aloud. It would have been really nice if Kaguya could come back out of his shadow right now and just read it all for him. This one is probably as good a place as any. Sakura somehow picked a scroll out from the pile without even really looking at it. It was even more impressive considering she was still reading as she had done it. Naruto looked down at the scroll to see it was a list of old academy records, probably dating to around the time Kakashi had attended himself. Without much other choice, he decided to unroll it and start reading. For perhaps the first time in his life he was willingly reading for the sake of gathering information. He had thought he would hate the idea, but somehow having Sakura next to him doing the same thing made it feel more bearable. As if it wasn't something he was doing alone, but rather with a friend. Maybe the library wasn't so bad, after all. If it was always like this, he wouldn't mind studying more often from time to time. Hitaki Kakashi, student of the Yondaime Hokage. The hero of Kanabi Bridge. Sharingan warrior that copied over 1,000 jutsu. He was an incredibly accomplished ninja that held these titles and even more. He was also what Kaguya would refer to as an oversight. Such a renowned figure in Konoha's military should have been important information her will had looked into while it still had the chance. Yet it had overlooked him, because while he may have possessed a Sharingan eye, he wasn't actually an Uchiha and as such wasn't a potential reincarnation for Indra. Apparently sometime during the last war, he had lost an eye and a fallen Uchiha teammate of his had offered his own as a replacement just before his death. That alone made him dangerous enough that he should have been taken into consideration far before now. That Sharingan of his could potentially be their undoing. Never mind Indra's current reincarnation that hadn't awakened his own true powers yet, this was the only man in the village with the potential to see Kaguya as she was. What was worse was he had already seen her outside of the shadow just the night before. Was it a mere coincidence? Kaguya would like to think so, but she couldn't leave that possibility to chance. That was why as soon as Naruto had finished gathering all the necessary information on Kakashi, she had him begin searching the village. They had to find him and get to the bottom of this before it was too late. If it wasn't already. I'm telling you this is impossible. Naruto complained, landing on top of the roof of a wide building. He had been searching for Kakashi for a couple hours already, long enough for the sun to set and the waning moon to replace it in the night sky. First of all, I don't know how you expect me to find a single guy in this whole village, he continued to grumble, walking to the edge of the rooftop, placing his hands on the railings to lean over and scan the busy streets below. Dozens of people passed below every couple seconds. As far as he could tell, none of them were the man he was supposed to be looking for. We suppose this is a fool's errand indeed. Kaguya rose out of his shadow, taking her place next to Naruto to scan the surrounding vicinity with her Byakugan. Even the enhanced sight of 360 degrees for 50 meters in every direction wasn't enough to possibly locate him. The idea had just been to have Naruto go to numerous areas of the village when they were the most busy. In other words, somewhere he had the highest possibility of being if the only thing you considered was general statistics. From there, she would look for him using the all-encompassing vision of her Byakugan. So far that had proved pointless. Either Kakashi wasn't someone to usually come out in public or worse, he didn't want to be found. If the latter was the case then they were already too late. So we can finally give up? Naruto asked, glancing down at Kaguya. She nodded in agreement, the veins pulsating around the side of her head disappearing as she deactivated the Byakugan. Good, I want to get to learning better control of these Rinnegan. He flexed the eyes in the palms of his hands as he said that. Speaking of which, Kaguya also turned slightly to look at his hands. Thou showed greatly improved control today when fighting thy classmates. When did thou have time to learn such technique? It was far from perfect, but compared to last night even, Naruto had shown incredible discretion with the use of his eyes. So much so that not even the Hyuga girl who had been watching should have been able to realize what had happened. Naruto shrugged at the question. I don't know, really. I just kind of felt like I could do it, you know. It would appear Naruto was somewhat unnatural when it came to the use of his eyes, using them purely on feeling alone to such great results. Kaguya couldn't say she was displeased, but it was disconcerting that this was the first real time Naruto showed sudden growth. She supposed the Rinnegan awakening had also somehow awakened some kind of hidden potential in Naruto that had always lay dormant. Or perhaps he was just a late bloomer. These were the apologetic responses. The more pessimistic train of thought was Naruto's potential had been purposely sabotaged by everyone around him up until now, along with his confidence. Now that he had found himself, he was more easily able to tap into his true potential. What other kind of jutsu can you teach me? Naruto suddenly asked, slightly surprising Kaguya. She glanced up to see him uncharacteristically earnest. I can't rely on Mizuki-sensei or anyone else anymore. I've never even managed to learn a basic clone technique. I can use transformation just fine, but that was about it before now. You must have other awesome things you can show me, right? What about that bone bullet thing you do? Kaguya shook her head, despite knowing the disappointed look Naruto would make right after. Do not misunderstand. We would like to teach you more. It is simply not possible. The Haikatsu is a Kekkei Genkai much like the Byakugan, so it is not something that can be taught. For other techniques, while it is true we are the progenitor of all chakra, we do not possess the knowledge to teach what you desire. The number of basic techniques Kaguya knew was nearly zero. Her abilities were so great that there was never any need for her to learn lesser techniques, never mind that many of them didn't exist when she had been alive. As humanity continued to grow further and further from the source of chakra, they had to create many techniques to supplement the loss in power. Quantity over quality, as it was. That was why she needed information from the Nara boy earlier to learn his jutsu. Shadow manipulation was a fascinating technique and beneficial to her in this weakened form. However, at full power, she would have never had the need to create such a technique. This extended to many others' abilities, including the clone technique Naruto was now asking to be taught. Guess this means I'm back to square zero, huh? Naruto sighed, but accepted her words as the truth. He knew she had no reason to lie to him about such things. The stronger he got, the more beneficial it was for her as well. I really need to get the Bunshin no Jutsu down before the graduation exam too, otherwise I might fail. Well, that wouldn't be any good. If possible, I would like you to pass. A third voice from behind interrupted their conversation. A familiar voice that they had both heard for the first time yesterday. They spun around to find Kakashi crouched in the middle of the roof, holding one hand up in greeting. Yo, I understand that you have been looking for me. There was a sudden thunk as a small gray bullet made of bone struck him directly in the Chunin vest. The green material began to crumble and Kakashi leapt backwards, ash falling all around him as the vest turned to ash. TCH, Kaguya clicked her teeth. Her bullets were too small and weak to pierce through something designed to withstand kunai slashes and shuriken punctures, it would seem. Against civilians who didn't wear such things, a single bullet would be enough, but that wasn't going to be the case against those with more protection. At full power she would have shot bigger projectiles from the palm of her hand that consisted of bone made from her radius or ulna. As she could only generate a limited number of bones the size of her index finger. That would be enough. She had already destroyed his protection. With the next one she could finish him off. Wait, Kakashi started to say too late. She fired another bone bullet and it sunk into his chest cavity. He started to crumble apart, at least for a moment, before he transformed into a log. Kawarimi no Jutsu? Naruto asked in surprise, simultaneously informing Kaguya of what had just happened. Like I was saying, the real Kakashi was to their left now, in the same crouching position he had been in as before. Uruji-sama. Pull him in. Kaguya wasn't going to wait for him to finish. He was already far too dangerous an existence for them, having snuck up on them while they were speaking. Who knew what he had overheard? That was without mentioning he had known they were looking for him in the first place. Bansho Tenin. Naruto reacted first, only thinking about it after it was too late. Until now, Kaguya had been the one to kill people. He hadn't helped her with that, she had done it all on her own. If he got involved like this, he could no longer claim innocence. He was about to become complicit in her murders. Whoa. Kakashi once again had his words cut off mid-sentence, Naruto's right palm pulling him towards the young blonde like a vortex. He flew through the air, arms and legs flailing behind him as if some invisible force had grabbed him by the chest and was pulling him forward. Kaguya smirked, shooting 3 more bone bullets. It was overkill, but she wasn't taking any more chances. Kakashi wasn't a jonin and considered a legendary ninja for nothing, however. Even when suddenly faced with a new ability he had never experienced before, he was able to react. His body twisted and turned, adjusting his limbs difficult but possible against the force of Naruto's Bansho Tenin. It was just enough, allowing him to barely dodge the bullets as they whizzed past him. He may have dodged the barrage, but he was far from safe just yet. Despite gaining some control over his trajectory, the final destination hadn't changed and he was on a direct collision course with Naruto. In mere moments the two would collide into one another. At least, they should have under normal circumstances. Naruto's shadow bent and twisted, shooting out halfway to merge with Kakashi's. The moment the two shadows connected and Kakashi's forward momentum was brought to a violent and sudden halt. His whole body jerked to a stop, giving him whiplash and temporarily stunning him. This ends now. Kaguya readied her last bullet. 6 shots was her limit. It wasn't a matter of a cooldown like Naruto's Rinnegan. She suspected in order to further create more bones she would have to wait for Naruto to intake calcium that she could then convert into her jutsu. So if this shot missed, they were going to have to find a different way to take Kakashi down. This was it. She fired her bullet. Kakashi, still suffering from the effects of whiplash, wasn't able to say or do anything as it pierced his exposed chest. Like before, he began to crumble apart, turning into gray ash. However, unlike before he didn't turn into a log and just continued to fall apart as a human until the very end. In a matter of moments it was over, and the legendary copy ninja was no more. That was all really dramatic. At least, that should have been the case. Yet from behind the ashes of the fallen Kakashi, a second one stepped out from the shadows and into the moonlight. Now then, can we talk? Or did you want to keep going? How? Naruto asked the same question Kaguya was thinking. That couldn't have been the Bunshin no Jutsu. Clones aren't real, they don't have solid form. Well, you aren't wrong about that. Kakashi raised both hands in front of himself, forming a seal of some kind. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In a burst of smoke, a replica of Kakashi appeared to his left. These are shadow clones. He held one hand up towards the clone, who returned the gesture, their hands clapping together as they high-fived one another. Both of thou, Kaguya clarified, using her Byakugan to study Kakashi and his clone. There was no perceptual difference between them. They were completely the same, down to the chakra signature. If she hadn't seen him create a clone, she wouldn't have even known which was the original right now. If either one of them even was. I thought it might be best to not approach you in person. Considering how trigger-happy you are, Ojo-chan. Kakashi answered, confirming her suspicion that neither one of them was the original. Under normal circumstances, Kaguya would call him out on his lack of decorum for not appearing before them himself. His good sense had saved his life, however. Seeing as how I'm still alive to finally explain that, I would guess you've run out of bullets. Perceptive too, it would seem. Kaguya-chan, what should we do? Naruto asked, but she didn't have an answer. Kakashi had completely outplayed them. Even if they could continue to fight him, they had no idea where the original truly was. He could be on the other side of the village for all she knew. As things are, we have no choice but to hear him out. Kaguya sighed, folding her arms and glaring at the two Kakashis. It would seem he came to us with the intention of bargaining for his life. It really helps me out if you understand that. Kakashi chuckled humorlessly, inclining his head as if bowing to them. The clone next to him disappeared a moment later. To be honest, I had no intention of approaching you at all so early, but once I figured out you were looking for me, I didn't exactly have much choice. So he really had been aware of their pursuit. No wonder they couldn't find him, even with her Byakugan. So then how does this work from here? Naruto asked, looking back and forth between Kaguya and Kakashi. He wouldn't ever tell her, but he was happy they had failed to kill Kakashi with that last attack. The number of people who ever helped him was slightly growing, but it was still thin. He would rather not eliminate allies as quickly as he made them. Good question, Kakashi shrugged, turning his attention to Naruto. I should probably start by saying that I am on your side, Naruto. Or rather, I would like you to be on our side. Do not use wordplay in an attempt to deceive our Uruji. Kaguya took a couple steps to the side, placing herself directly between Naruto and Kakashi. It was not mere whim upon which we decided to leave our Uruji's shadow. Thou claim you want him to be thy ally, but we are here because our Uruji has no ally in this village. If there had been even one person before now that tried to save Naruto, she wouldn't have ever come out. It was because no one did that she felt she had to. You're right, my bad. I should have started differently, after all. Kakashi continued to look at Naruto from over the top of Kaguya's head. This is why I apologized the other day, because I haven't been there for you as much as I should have been. However, you have to believe me when I say that I was very busy helping you out in other ways. He placed his arms by his sides and this time bowed properly before them. It is a pleasure to officially make your acquaintance. I am Hitaki Kakashi, and for the past few years it has been my mission to watch over you and report any changes on your condition to Hokage-sama. He returned to an upright position before continuing. Having said that, I have been feeding the Hokage false information until now. For example, he still does not know about your existence, Ojo-chan. I know you've been there since right around the time of the Uchiha incident. Rather, I knew something happened to Naruto's shadow at that time. It wasn't until last night I knew it was you. Wait, slow down. Naruto suddenly shouted, taking a couple steps forward. Before he could get too far, Kaguya held up an arm, urging him to stay back and not get much closer. You mean you've been keeping an eye on me all this time for the Hokage? But why? What interest would the Hokage have in someone like me? Thou already know the answer to that. Kaguya was the one who answered. Kyuubi no Yoko. Jinchuriki have infamously been used as weapons of mass destruction in past ninja wars. So it stands to reason the Hokage would want someone to keep an eye on thou as the host of the strongest of those Biju. So you already know about that too, huh? Kakashi sighed, but nodded in affirmation to Kaguya's words. That's right, but I can't see Kyuubi's chakra mixing with Naruto's anymore. Haven't been able to since about the time Naruto's shadow changed. Even so, I never told Hokage-sama about this. It hasn't been easy. I've had to do a lot to make sure no one else found out about this either, even accidentally. You should be more grateful to me, Ojo-chan. Grateful? Naruto asked, clenching his teeth so hard it sounded like they might break. What the hell is there to be grateful to a bastard like you for? You've seen how much I have been suffering this whole time and you didn't do anything. You, and the Hokage, none of you ever saw me for anything more than the fox. Isn't that right? That's wrong, Kakashi countered, voice quiet but stern. Maybe for Danzo-sama that is true, but for me it's different. Think about it, I've already known you haven't had the Kyuubi for years, but I've continued to protect your secret. I am not your enemy. Just because thou are not our enemy does not make thou our ally. Kaguya pointed out to him. However, perhaps we shall hear you out. Tell us the sequence of events so we may choose for ourselves whether or not to put our trust in thou. I guess that's the most I can ask. 4. Kakashi sighed, but agreed to continue. Let me start with the Kyuubi attack on the night of Naruto's birth. Frankly speaking, we believe Danzo-sama orchestrated that attack to kill the Yondaime Hokage and take his place. As you know, it was mostly successful, the Yondaime dying to place the Kyuubi inside an infant Naruto. Who is this we that thou speak of? Kaguya asked for clarification. We're a small organization of Anbu members known as Root. It was formerly a division run by Danzo-sama under the Sandame's tenure, but when he became Hokage, it was disbanded. A couple of us revived it as a now anti-Danzo faction. I probably don't have to say, but its current existence is top secret. So secret he would trust me, its leader, with the mission of keeping an eye on Naruto's condition. Why you? Naruto asked, and to answer that question, Kakashi lifted the left side of his Hitai-8 to reveal a Sharingan eye. This eye can control the flow of Kyuubi's chakra, at least in theory. He placed the Hitai-8 back over his eye. At least, that's the official reason I was chosen. The truth of the matter is I volunteered for this mission. That's because, Naruto, you are a special person from the moment you were born. Not because the Kyuubi no Yoko was placed in you, but from before that even. Naruto, you are the son of the Yondaime Hokage. Kaguya understood now. She had indeed thought it odd that Kakashi would have some interest in Naruto if not for the Kyuubi, but as a former student of the Yondaime, it made sense he would want to remain close to his son. That was why he continued to protect his secret even after. Despite the fact that Naruto no longer offered any strategic value without the Kyuubi. I really am sorry I haven't been able to better protect you. Kakashi continued. Danzo-sama believes that a perfect Jinchuriki is one filled with hatred. This is why he had fake rumors spread about you being the fox incarnate and made laws such as not telling your generation the truth. All to further isolate you and strengthen your own hatred. He hopes to one day use your hate to control the Kyuubi, and it's why I couldn't risk jeopardizing my position to help you, no matter how much I might have wanted to. Naruto had fallen silent, not reacting to any of the things Kakashi had been saying for several moments now. The truth was, he had stopped listening after being told he was the son of a former Hokage. How was he even supposed to react to this news? He didn't know. Should he be happy? His father had been some amazing existence, the leader of the village, for as short a time as it had been. Or would it be better to get angry? Because despite who his father had been, Naruto had been treated this badly the whole time. We understand the basics now. Kaguya said, her voice drawing his attention back down to her. He thought it was odd that he felt nothing, but looking at Kaguya now he knew why. Who his parents were didn't matter anymore. They hadn't been there for him when he needed them, but Kaguya was here now. Nothing else mattered. So, Kaguya continued. What would thou have us do? Certainly thou would not propose to make our Uruji the Hokage simply for his bloodline. As she understood it, that wasn't what a military dictatorship valued when picking their leaders. Although she would admit there had been some connection between all the previous leaders. No, nothing like that. Kakashi waved his hand as if to dismiss the idea. First of all, is it all right if I ask what exactly it is that you are, Ojo-chan? I understand you live in Naruto's shadow. It would also seem that you somehow replaced the Kyuubi, or perhaps evolved from it. There is also the matter of your Byakugan, same as the Hyuga clan. Honestly, any one of those things by themselves would be surprising, so you're a pretty incredible existence to try and pin down the nature of. We will give thou the same answer we gave our Uruji. Kaguya straightened herself out, flicking her long white locks of hair dramatically as she placed both hands on her hips and raised her chin as if to look down on the taller man before them. We are a mere moon rabbit, come down to this planet to eat demons. Thinking of us as that is enough. That's so. Kakashi seemed to want to laugh, but didn't appear to know how in the face of such a serious way of saying something so ridiculous. Well, I can't say I really get it, but that's good enough for now. As for what we want from Naruto, the plan was to have this conversation after he graduated. I submitted my application to withdraw from the Anbu and become a Jonin sensei not long ago. I would then take him on my team where I would be able to look after him more carefully. Well, the order got a bit mixed up, but we can still go with that, right? It is not for us to decide. Kaguya turned to Naruto, looking up at him. Uruji-sama, what would thou have us do? We personally do not see the need to get involved in some power struggle between humans, but if thou desire it, we will abide by thy will. Naruto continued to stare at Kaguya for several moments, before slowly shifting his gaze to Kakashi. He still didn't like that this guy had abandoned him for all this time, but there was something even more than that he couldn't forget. You said this Danzo guy was responsible for the death of my father. Along with my treatment up until now, right? He clarified, Kakashi nodding to his question. Then, I guess I got no choice, I'm in. He didn't care about what had to happen to make it happen, but he finally had some kind of path for himself. He had gotten power, and now he had found a purpose for that power. Kakashi let out a sigh of relief. That's good. On one condition. Naruto cut him off. As it is, I might not even be able to graduate. Even if I get strong, it doesn't mean anything if I can't learn to make clones before the final exam. So before then, teach me. Not just the normal Bunshin no Jutsu. I need to be able to really surprise Mizuki-sensei and give him no reason to be able to fail me, so, he inhaled deeply, pointing dramatically at the copy ninja. Teach me the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The day of the graduation exam was here. A day that Naruto had been preparing for over the past month. It wasn't just Kaguya that he had to rely on anymore. Certainly she continued to teach him late at night, just the two of them alone in the forests of Konohagakure no Sato. She praised his progress, often remarking he seemed to be a natural at using the power within his hands. The Rinnegan also wasn't the only tool he had in his arsenal anymore. Kaguya also taught him an ancient and forgotten martial arts style, one that she said would be considered the predecessor to the Hyuga's Juken style. In addition to that, he had been learning to fight with the blade she had stolen for him. A blade which Hatake Kakashi showed interest in. He wouldn't tell them why, but he seemed to have some knowledge about the white slash emitted from the blade when Naruto swung it. So in addition to teaching him how to make shadow clones, he instructed him in how to best make use of his sword. Naruto wasn't only getting stronger, but smarter over the past month too. Studying with Sakura after classes had become an unspoken tradition between the two, Naruto for the first time finding joy in being able to learn about history and even math. Because for the first time he had someone to actually show interest in speaking with him about such things. Even during their weekly written exams, Naruto was slowly beginning to be able to answer the questions even without Kaguya's help. Of course, he was far from caught up to the rest of the class in that area, but compared to before, it was a remarkable improvement. All of it had been building to this day. The written tests were over, the practical field exam was complete, and now the only thing left was the jutsu application portion of the exams. Everything that came before it was pointless in the face of this exam. If you passed this, it didn't really matter how you did on everything else. You could become a genin. In that same respect, if you failed, that was it. You would never graduate. Haruno Sakura, step forward. Mizuki called. All of the students were lined up in the front of the classroom. Mizuki sat behind his desk, clipboard in hand. Placed on the desk in front of him was a spread of Hitai 8 identical to the one on his head. Good luck. Naruto whispered to Sakura as she stepped forward to perform the jutsu that would determine her future career. Save some for yourself. Sakura shot back, softly enough for only him to hear. Well, that wasn't entirely true. Him and one other person that happened to have been right next to them. When the heck did you two start getting along? Shikamaru asked, genuinely curious for once. It wasn't a surprise that he hadn't been aware of the change between the two. Outside of the library and everything was business as usual. Which meant they never talked to one another, acting as they always did. Until that little exchange, at least. Wanna make a trade for information again? Naruto joked, smirking sideways at Shikamaru. Hey, no thanks. Shikamaru shook his head, but couldn't fight down the slightly rising smile. He didn't know what had happened with Naruto over the past month, but he hadn't just gotten stronger and smarter, but more confident too. As he was now, Shikamaru couldn't say he disliked him. He might even say they could be friends. If it wasn't for the fact that making friends was a pain. Bunshin no Jutsu. Sakura unleashed her technique, cutting off any further conversation between the two. 3 clones popped into existence around her, each and every one of them a perfect replica indistinguishable from the original. The highest number of perfect clones anyone had performed until now. Well done, Haruno. Mizuki nodded and gestured to the Hittite 8 on the desk. You pass. Go ahead and take your official mark as a genin of Konohagakure no Sato. She stepped forward and grabbed the nearest one, holding it in her hand as she took her spot in line next to Naruto. Next up is Uchiha Sasuke. Mizuki continued down the list. As Sasuke began to walk forward, he sent a quick glare in Naruto's direction. One which Naruto all too readily returned. Despite having been hoping for it, Naruto never did get to have his match against Sasuke. So now the time to settle the score for who was best was going to come down to this, which one of them could produce the most clones. Bunshin no Jutsu. Sasuke unleashed the same technique, producing 6 perfect replicas of himself. That was double the number of Sakura just before him, who had been the highest score in the class before now. Excited whispers broke out from a majority of the students, awe and shock sweeping through most of them. As expected of the Uchiha heir, Mizuki nodded for Sasuke to come forward and take his Hittite 8. It went without saying, but he had of course passed. Everyone knew there was no chance that Sasuke could possibly fail. The same, however, could not be said for the next one to have their name called to come forward. Uzumaki Naruto. Mizuki glanced nervously at Naruto as he began to walk towards the center. The hushed whispers from earlier continued. If you had asked them all a month ago, everyone would have thought for sure the dead last would fail. That had slowly begun to change as Naruto's fortune suddenly seemed to turn around. He was no longer the dead last that failed every test and lost every match. He was something else now. What exactly that was, no one could be sure. The bullying had stopped, but that didn't mean everyone suddenly started treating Naruto with respect. It was more of a cautious anxiety, like he was some dangerous animal that had escaped its cage at the zoo. Rumors had started spreading after 3 in the class had ended up in the hospital and had to be withdrawn from the academy. There was no proof, but everyone suspected it had been Naruto. The true test of Naruto was now. Despite how much he had changed recently, everyone knew that cloning was the thing he had the most difficulty with before now. If he had managed to overcome even that hurdle, then the old Naruto they thought they knew was truly gone. A thought that terrified most of them, whether they would admit it or not. Naruto didn't care about any of that anymore. The academy was just a stepping stone for him now. Before, it had been his chance to make friends and become stronger. Neither of those things had happened during his time here. It was only after Kaguya showed up that things had started to change. Now he knew the truth about his treatment and the cause of his suffering. That was why he would pass and then he would join Kakashi in order to get his revenge. If he had any regrets, it would be that he didn't get to go head to head against Sasuke, but the two was fine. Because he was about to upstage him right now. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto formed a hand seal different than everyone else had. There was a surge of chakra greater than everything before, and next to Naruto there were 6 loud pops. From within the bursts of smoke, 6 clones of Naruto appeared. They all stepped forward, the sound of their feet stepping on the ground making an audible noise. Impossible, Mizuki's clipboard clattered to the floor. All the murmuring from before was gone. Before them, Naruto hadn't just created the same number of clones as Sasuke had, he performed a much more complicated version of those clones. Ones that were real, physical beings. Clones capable of more than just a distraction, but use in actual combat. Naruto didn't wait for Mizuki to tell him he had passed or failed. He simply walked up to the desk as his clones popped out of existence and grabbed one of the Hittite 8 for himself, wrapping it around his forehead. When Mizuki didn't even attempt to stop him, Naruto smirked at his Chunin-sensei. He then walked back, taking his place in line between Shikamaru and Sakura. I would say I'm surprised, but nothing really can shock me at this point, Shikamaru grumbled, rubbing the back of his head and letting out a long, drawn-out sigh. Guess you didn't need that luck after all. Sakura smirked sideways at Naruto, who returned the expression. Congratulations, she added as an afterthought. Hey, you too. Naruto nodded at her before also glancing over to Shikamaru. Both of you. I know it wasn't much, but I think of you guys as the closest thing to having friends that I got. In the end, and he couldn't throw away that part of him that wanted bonds completely. Even now he still secretly hoped for them, even if he would try and deny that part of himself. Oi, oi. Don't get sappy on us at the end. Shikamaru adjusted his gaze, unable to look Naruto head on after his embarrassing confession. Just so you know, of everyone in class, you were the least of a pain in my ass. Naruto grinned, letting out a loud chuckle. That's so? He asked. Both of you are still idiots. Sakura shook her head, but smiled all the same. But sitting next to you guys did make class somehow more bearable, so, thanks for everything up until now. Mizuki cleared his throat, ending any further conversation among the three of them and everyone else in the class. He had collected his dropped clipboard and stood up straight in front of them all now. Congratulations to everyone for passing the exam. From this day forward, you are all ninja of Konohagakure no Sato. The next time we meet will be in this room a week from now. At that time, you will receive your team assignments and meet your Jonin sensei. Until then, dismissed. Sir, yes sir. Everyone replied. A moment later and all the tension dissipated as the students began conversing casually amongst themselves, making their way to the door as they did. Shikamaru and Sakura also began to make their way for the door, but Naruto held back. Neither one of them seemed to notice, as they were no doubt eager to go outside and meet their parents. Almost everyone had somebody to celebrate with and show off their success to. Everyone except Naruto and one other. As even Mizuki left the room, those two were left alone. While Naruto assumed at first it was just because they were the only two orphans, it seemed to be Sasuke had intentions other than that. Start talking, loser. Sasuke said, leaning against the door and glaring at him. Where did you get that power from? Figure it out for yourself, jackass. Naruto shot back, starting to stalk forward. Before he could get past the door, Sasuke moved, standing in his way. I'll beat it out of you, if that's what it takes. The Uchiha survivor sneered down at Naruto, the hate rolling off of him strong enough to emit its own odor. Nothing stands in the way of me and my revenge, and if there is something out there able to give you power as fast as you've obtained it, then I need it. It's called hard work. Something you wouldn't know about. Naruto reached forward to shove him aside when Sasuke grabbed him by the wrist. He squeezed as if intending to break it, exerting enough pressure that caused even Naruto to flinch. I won't ask again. Sasuke was deathly serious, Naruto realized. Which was fine by him. He may have just showed him up with his clones, but he had been looking for an opportunity to kick his ass too. Now it had finally presented itself to him. You're gonna have to beat it out of me. Naruto leaned forward, knocking his forehead against Sasuke's. Not terribly hard, but within force to shock the Uchiha and get him to loosen his grip on Naruto's wrist. For a split second, it looked like Sasuke was about to retaliate on the spot, clenching both hands into fists and beginning to wind up. He caught himself at the last possible second, releasing his pent-up breath in a long sigh before nodding behind him. Not here. Let's go somewhere the teachers won't stop us. Sasuke said. He didn't wait for an answer before turning around and stalking out of the classroom, heading the opposite way everyone else had gone. Perfect. Naruto followed after him and the two soon snuck out the back of the academy, making their way into the forests located behind it. As far as Naruto could tell, no one was coming after them. Uruji-sama. Kaguya whispered to him from within the shadow. This is an excellent opportunity for us to eliminate Indra's reincarnation. This man will one day be trouble for us in the future. It is imperative we make good use of this fortune. Kaguya had been waiting for a chance just like this. Ever since she had discovered the identity of Indra's newest host. So long as he was killed now, and Naruto himself didn't perish, the next cycle wouldn't begin and there would be nothing left with the strength to seal her yet again. No. Naruto whispered back, harshly enough to shock her. I'm gonna kick his ass first and make sure he knows once and for all that I'm better than him. Until that happens, don't interfere. There it was, the curse of the two brothers bearing its fangs. Naruto didn't even realize that he was being manipulated by Asura's ghost, who still sought to continue his fight against Indra. All the same, Kaguya would allow it for the moment. She just had to be patient a little longer. So long as she allowed Naruto to stifle his inferiority complex, she would be able to make her move without any problem. Just until the end of their fight. That was how long she would wait. Talking to yourself again, failure. Sasuke called over the back of his shoulder. He must have noticed Naruto frequently grumbling to himself over the past month, having no idea he was actually speaking to someone within his shadow. Still, it was to their benefit for now that he hadn't realized the truth. Just psyching myself up to finally kick your ass, Naruto retorted, punching a fist into his open palm. He had gotten good at coming up with convenient reasons for why he always talked to himself. Something he wouldn't have to do if he would just learn a more discreet way to communicate with her. HMPH, only in your dreams, you loser. Sasuke finally stopped walking, having already led them far enough away from the academy that there shouldn't be anyone to bother them, or accidentally stumble upon their little match. Now come, I will beat those secrets out of you. He held up his hand, forming the seal of confrontation. The only loser here is about to be you. Naruto returned the gesture. The moment he did was when Sasuke attacked, closing the distance between them before Naruto even had a chance to lower his seal. A month ago and Naruto would have been too slow to react to such an underhanded and aggressive assault without Kaguya's assistance by way of controlling his shadow. The Naruto of today was much different than what he had been back then, and such an attack now was all too easy for him to counter. Sasuke's fist flew at him in a wild haymaker. Naruto simply raised his hand, slapping Sasuke's arm away and deflecting the punch to the side. In the same movement he jabbed at Sasuke with an open palm. Sasuke blocked with his forearm. He then swung his free arm in from the side. Naruto leaned back, dodging the chop by a hair's breadth. Sasuke knocked Naruto's fist back, unleashing a barrage of punches. Naruto didn't back down from such an assault, catching each fist that flew at him like gunfire, not letting a single one past his guard. As if realizing his attack wasn't working, Sasuke pulled back, spinning around and swinging at Naruto in a low kick. Naruto again simply deflected, sticking his knee out and catching the kick with a soft bunt. The sudden shift threw Sasuke off balance. Not for long, just a split second. It was enough, however. Naruto pressed in, jabbing Sasuke in the shoulder with an open palm. Sasuke made a grunt, left eye flinching shut from the impact. That was the deciding moment. Unable to see Naruto's wild haymaker coming from this sudden blind spot, Sasuke was also unable to defend against it. Goo! He let out a loud grunt, eating the full weight of Naruto's fist. The Uchiha flew to the ground, collapsing to a heap as Naruto bested him in one-on-one hand-to-hand combat. Just like that, and the match was decided. At least, had this been an academy-sanctioned fight, Mizuki would have called such a blow the conclusion. That was where Naruto made his mistake, assuming that Sasuke would accept this as the end. He bent down towards his defeated opponent, offering him the seal of reconciliation. It was at that moment that Sasuke's hand came forward, grabbing Naruto by the wrist and pulling him down. Naruto didn't even have a chance to realize what was happening. One moment the fight was over and he was giving his opponent a hand up. The next and he was face down on the ground. Sasuke holding his right arm with both hands, his knee placed on Naruto's back with enough force to keep him pinned. Now, Sasuke grinned, blood oozing out from his busted lip. You're going to talk, or I'm going to break your arm. He twisted, not enough to break it just yet, but enough that Naruto knew with just a little bit more pressure it would snap. It would be that easy, and this wasn't no bluff. Sasuke really intended to go that far, all in order to find out where his power came from. Naruto couldn't help it, he laughed. You really want my power that badly, Sasuke? He didn't even have to turn his head to see the boy that had him pinned down. The Rinnegan eye on his left hand opened up, pushing aside the fabric of the glove to look back at the Uchiha for him. Then you can just fucking have it. He unleashed the Shinra Tensei. Sasuke was suddenly lifted off his feet, sent flying backwards with enough force that the world around him became nothing more than a blur. It all came to a violent and abrupt stop not moments later, as his back smashed against the trunk of the nearest tree. The wind was knocked from his lungs and he sunk to the ground in a lifeless heap. It was at that moment that Kaguya finally saw her chance. Before Naruto could say or do anything, she rose out from his shadow, hand already formed into a finger gun pointed at the downed Uchiha. Kaguya-chan. Naruto called too late. She fired the shot, the bullet hitting Sasuke in the chest only a moment later. As he was, dazed from having his head collide with the trunk of the tree, he didn't even have time to realize what happened before he crumbled into ash, becoming nothing more than a gray pile on the forest floor. Just like that he was gone. The last surviving Uchiha of the village, top student of their class, and Naruto's secret rival for all this time, a pile of ash. It had to be done, Kaguya said simply, not regretting the action for a second. As does this. While she spoke, Naruto's shadow began to move, bending to Kaguya's will as it became thinner, stretching itself to the limits to slip behind the edge of a nearby tree. Eep! A sudden cry called out from beyond Naruto's sight. He had thought nobody had been following them, but that was wrong. Kaguya had to have known there was someone there from the beginning because of the power of her Byakugan, but she kept quiet this whole time. She had intentionally allowed him to think they were alone, but in reality that wasn't the case at all. As Kaguya took a couple steps to the side, the intruder upon their battle was revealed, being forced into mimicking Kaguya's movements. Hinata. Naruto whispered, just as surprised as the girl now caught in his shadow seemed to be. This was the second time she had been caught spying on him as he battled. For what reason, he still didn't understand. However, unlike before, this time she had seen too much. As such, she couldn't be allowed to leave. Wait. For the second time he was too slow. Kaguya had already fired the second bullet, this one digging into the Hyuga girl bound by their shadow. No, no, no. Naruto's brain rushed, trying to come up with some solution. Something that could save her. It was impossible, he knew that. There was no surviving one of those little ashen bullets. If you were hit by it you would die. That was a determined fact. Naruto-kun, Hinata attempted to call out to him, reaching her hand forward. That was the last thing she ever did, that outstretched hand turning to ash and crumbling to the floor just seconds before the rest of her followed after. The tears threatening to fall from her eyes were the last thing of Hyuga Hinata that Naruto ever saw. After that, she was simply a pile of gray ash on the forest floor, the same as Sasuke now was. He collapsed to his knees, staring at the spot where Hinata had just been moments before. Why? He asked, voice hoarse. She wasn't going to tell anyone. It was Hinata that had witnessed him before when fighting those boys from class. With her word, he could have just as easily been the one kicked out of the academy. Yet she had kept her promise and told no one it had been him. She had protected him then, why was it any different now? Thou are too naive, Aruruji-sama. This and that are two different matters. Even if she wouldn't have betrayed thou willingly, leaving her alive would only be a liability. Kaguya answered, her voice taking no pleasure in what she had just done. Aside from Uchiha Sasuke, who had to be eliminated for her own safety, taking care of Hyuga Hinata had been for the sake of her master. Even if he couldn't understand that. Kaguya walked towards Naruto, taking his chin in her hands and turning him to face her. Thou need trust no one but us. Do thou understand? She asked of him. Naruto was silent, tears slowly rolling down his cheeks as he tried and failed to comprehend even basic speech. What she was saying should have been a simple truth. Easy for anyone to comprehend. Yet for some reason, he wasn't able to. Sasuke had been his rival, someone for him to defeat one day in the future. Not like this, struck down before their true match could ever be determined. However, that was something Naruto could forgive. Kaguya had her reasons for wanting Sasuke gone, even if they were beyond his comprehension. Hinata, however, was a different matter. She had only ever wanted to help him. He understood that now, only after it was too late. What he had mistaken for fear this whole time was something else. What it was he still didn't understand, but that was only because she was the first one to ever look at him that way. He knew though, that Kaguya had just taken his soulmate away from him. We are the only one thou need now. Kaguya repeated her earlier words, stronger this time. It was then that Naruto understood what she was saying. That was right. He didn't need rivals, lovers, teachers, parents, or anyone else. For him, in Kanagagakure no Sato, there was only Kaguya now. She was the one that would protect him, the one that would tell him the truth and make sure he was taken care of. Everyone else had their chance before now, but they were all too late. For Uzumaki Naruto, there was only Kaguya now. Thank you for listening. I do hope you guys enjoy. If you guys enjoyed this, what if you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notifications, and also check out the other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.